All right, let's dive into things we hide from the light. Lucy Scory.
Yeah, things we hide from the light.
We're going to be looking at some of those excerpts you sent over.
Yeah.
Focusing mostly on Lena and Nash.
Right.
And, of course, Duncan Hugo, everyone's favorite villain.
Right.
So before you commit to the whole book,
Yeah.
let's see if we can't make you even more curious about what's going on.
I think we can. What I think is really interesting about these excerpts is that we kind of just get thrown right into the thick of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, knock 'em out, Virginia. We meet Nash, the police chief. He's reeling from being shot by Duncan Hugo.
Right.
But on top of all of that,
Yeah.
he's got this amnesia
Yes.
from the event of being shot.
And that's like adding
Right.
insult to injury.
Right. Exactly.
You've got the physical wound, but then you've also got this like mental wound on top of it.
Yes.
Where he's really doubting
Absolutely.
his abilities as police chief and even just like trusting his own memories.
Well, and his instincts, which for a police chief are so important.
Right, yeah.
So that's just another layer to all of this.
Absolutely.
And he happens to live next door to Lena.
Yeah, that doesn't help, right. You know, she's there in Knock 'Em Out looking for this stolen Porsche, and it's like, ooh, all this tension.
And you know, we don't know immediately how it's all tied together, but we know it's all going to be tied together somehow.
Exactly. And Lena is a total mystery at first.
Oh, she is.
She's in town for this missing car. But then you find out that she is a much more complex character than that.
Much more complex. She recovers stolen assets for a living, which I think is quite a career.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what kind of past leads you to that, right?
Absolutely.
Like, how does that happen?
That's fascinating.
What's her story?
Yeah.
So right away, I'm like, okay, she's hiding more than she's letting on.
She is. She's totally holding back. And you know, the minute they meet, the sparks are going to fly.
Oh, yeah.
Right. There's this undeniable chemistry between them, but they're both just holding back. They've got their walls built up.
But I think that kind of shared experience and that kind of darkness underneath both of their lives also contributes to the attraction.
Absolutely. They recognize something in each other, right? They both have this kind of like shadowy past, and they operate in these kind of dangerous situations. So there's something there that they see in each other that other people don't.
Totally, yeah. And that could also be the thing that keeps them apart, right?
Oh, of course.
Especially because Duncan Hugo is just lurking over everything.
Looming. He's looming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy he's
not your run-of-the-mill bad guy either.
No, he's not. Shooting Ash was just the beginning, right?
Yeah, that was just the first little, you know, foray into his badness. But he also, you know, kidnaps his brother's fiance and niece.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's just ruthless. And it really sets the stakes high right from the beginning.
It does. It does. And it also, you know, makes you wonder, you know, he seems to kind of like playing with fire.
Yeah.
Almost pushing boundaries to see how far he can go, you know. And then we also find out that his own father might be hunting him. Yeah. So that's a whole nother layer of like, whoa, what kind of upbringing creates a Duncan Hugo?
What things is he hiding from the light?
Right.
Exactly.
And speaking of hiding things, Lena and Nash are both masters of keeping secrets.
Yes.
And we see that play out most clearly when Lena's true profession is revealed.
Right.
And it creates this rift between her and Nash. It does, but I also think that Nash's reaction isn't just about the lie itself. You know, I think it's also about his amnesia.
Right.
Like, he's unable to, you know, discern truth from fiction at this point and trust his own judgment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so all of this past trauma is kind of intertwined with what he's dealing with now.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, just as they're grappling with this, the danger escalates.
It does.
Duncan Hugo reappears.
Right.
Bringing the threat directly to them.
Right to their doorstep.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this, like, potential connection between Lana's work and Hugo. Yeah. So suddenly the stakes become deeply personal.
Very personal.
Yeah.
And I think if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's like the lines between personal and professional just totally get blurred, you know?
Totally.
And they're drawn into this dangerous game where they have to kind of confront not only Hugo, but also the secrets that they've been keeping from each other and themselves.
Yes.
Right.
It's like they're in this web, and the more they try to get out of it, the more entangled they become.
Yeah. exactly.
And then amidst all this chaos, we see support coming from some really surprising places.
Yes.
You know, Nash's family and friends.
Yes.
They rally around him, particularly his brother, Knox.
Yeah.
And their grandmother, Liza J.
There's just like this, there's warmth coming from the Morgan family.
Yes.
You know, they're a little rough around the edges, but they've got Nash's back.
They do.
Absolutely. And even Sloane, you know, the librarian.
Yes.
She steps up to help Lena.
I love Sloane.
Right.
She's so great.
She's awesome. And it's like, Knock 'Em Out might be more than just a town full of secrets, you know?
Yeah.
It's a place where people look after their own.
Yes.
It feels like that.
It really does. So it makes you wonder, is that going to be enough to overcome what Hugo's bringing their way?
Yeah.
And what about Lena and Nash?
Right.
Are they going to let their guards down?
Right.
Are they going to trust each other?
Exactly.
Are they going to find love in all of this?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, what do you think?
Oh, that is a good question.
From what we've seen so far, do you think their kind of shared love of secrecy, will it ultimately bring them together or tear them apart?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm leaning towards both. But we'll have to dive into that more in part 2.
Definitely.
And stay tuned.
Stay tuned. It's funny how that community feel you were just talking about really comes into play in these excerpts.
It does.
I mean, we see it in the Morgan family, of course.
Yeah.
But even in, you know, characters like Mrs. Tweedy, Lena's elderly neighbor.
Oh, Mrs. Tweedy. She is just the best.
She's a hoot.
I love her.
She really is. She brings this warmth and humor to the whole thing. And it's almost like this counterpoint to all the darkness and the danger that's lurking around.
Yeah, she's always ready with like a witty remark.
Yes.
Or a piece of advice.
Yes, exactly.
And she really embodies that Southern charm.
Totally.
Makes Lena feel welcome, even when Lena herself is a little hesitant to open up.
Right. And I think that speaks to Lena's character arc a little bit, don't you think?
I do, yeah.
I mean, she is so used to being independent, relying on her wits, her skills to kind of navigate everything. But in Knock 'Em Out, she's forced to confront the possibility that maybe letting people in, being a little vulnerable, is a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah, it's like the town itself is a challenge to her carefully constructed wall.
It is,
Like pushing her to think differently about life and relationships.
Exactly. And speaking of challenges, I mean, the whole Duncan Hugo investigation kind of takes a turn when we find out that he may be connected to some very powerful people.
It's like high stakes, high power.
High stakes, exactly.
It's a whole conspiracy.
It is. And this is where, you know, Lucy's score really ratchets up the tension, right? It's not just about catching this one criminal anymore. It's about unraveling this whole thing.
This web.
Yeah, this web. That could have these far-reaching consequences. And of course, you know, Lena, with her background, recovering stolen assets. She's right in the thick of it.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes you wonder, what does she know?
Right. What's she hiding?
What is she hiding? Even from Nash.
Yeah, even from Nash.
And then you've got Nash with his amnesia. On top of it all, trying to put this puzzle together when he's got these gaps in his own memory. And he doesn't know who to trust.
Right. He's got this double betrayal.
Yeah, exactly.
The people he thought he could trust. And then his own mind.
Yeah. And this is further, you know, heightened by this whole revelation that maybe Dilton, you know, one of the other police officers, is working with Hugo. And you're like, oh, come on.
I know. Talk about having your world rocked.
Your world just gets totally flipped upside down.
Yeah.
Right.
And all the while, his feelings for Lena are only intensifying.
Oh, of course.
Which just makes everything so much more complicated.
It does. And I think what's great about the way Lucy Score handles their relationship is that she doesn't shy away from how messy all of this is. You know? I mean, they're drawn to each other. But their pasts, their secrets, the situation they're in, it creates this push and pull.
Totally.
And it's just, oh, you know sparks are going to fly.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And you see that in the way their professional lives clash with their personal feelings.
Totally.
There's that one scene, I don't know if you remember, where they have this, like, supercharged moment. And then immediately it's followed by suspicion and accusation.
Yes, exactly.
It's like one step forward, 2 steps back.
2 steps back, exactly. But, you know, even with all that conflict, there's still those little glimpses of, you know, genuine hair. You know? Like when they dance at Knox's wedding.
Oh, yeah.
There's this longing.
Yeah.
This desire for connection that I think transcends all the danger and the craziness that's going on around them.
I love that scene. It was so beautifully written.
Right.
And you could just feel that weight.
Yes.
Everything unsaid between them.
Totally.
And the way they were drawn to each other, despite trying to resist.
Exactly. And then Hugo kidnaps Lena.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
And that's just, like, game change.
Huge game changer.
Huge game changer, right.
Yeah.
But I think what I love about how Lucy Score does this is she doesn't make Lena this damsel in distress.
Right, exactly.
You know, she is a captive.
Yeah.
But she uses her intelligence, her knowledge of Hugo's world to fight back.
Yeah.
She's not waiting to be rescued. She's trying to take control of the situation.
Absolutely. And Nash, even with his amnesia and all the turmoil that he's going through, he rises to the challenge.
He does. He's determined to save her.
Yeah.
But he also, you know, has to deal with the fact that everything he thought he knew about Hugo, about his own past, might be wrong.
And it's a pivotal moment for him.
It is.
He can't rely on his badge or his memories.
Right.
He has to trust his instincts.
Yes.
Even with the gaps.
Exactly. And in doing so, I think he really starts to reclaim his identity.
Yes.
Not as the police chief who was shot, but as the man he chooses to be.
Yes, I love that. Taking ownership of his present and his future. And it all culminates in this amazing showdown.
It does.
Where he confronts Hugo.
Yeah.
And Knox and Nolan are there, too.
Right, he's got backup.
Yeah, and it is just pure adrenaline.
Oh, it is. It is. And the way Lucy Score builds that suspense keeps you guessing until the very end.
Totally.
It's amazing. And it's not just about, you know, physical strength. It's about being smart and outmaneuvering your opponent.
Yes.
And even with his limitations, Nash is more than a match for Hugo.
Oh, he's a hero.
Yeah, he is.
He really is.
And Lena, you know, even though she was kidnapped,
yeah,
she plays a critical role in their escape.
She does.
Which, you know, again, reminds us that she's not just a love interest.
Right.
She's a force.
She's a badass.
She's a badass. What about that whole confrontation really stood out to you?
What stood out to me the most was the way that Lucy Score intertwined
yeah,
their personal struggles
yeah,
with the external conflict.
Yes.
You know, Nash isn't just fighting to save Lena.
Yeah.
He's fighting to reclaim himself.
Yes, exactly.
To prove that he can protect the people he cares about.
Exactly.
And Lena, by being so active in her own rescue,
right,
shows us that she's not defined by her vulnerability or her past.
Exactly. It's such a powerful message about resilience.
It is. About not being a victim.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
And it's so satisfying that they do it together.
They do.
You know, as a team.
They do.
And their bond, which was forged in all this danger and deceit, ends up being their greatest strength.
Absolutely. I think that's the theme that runs throughout the whole book, wouldn't you say?
I totally agree.
That true strength doesn't come from isolation. It comes from connection.
Yeah, from letting yourself rely on other people.
Exactly.
It's a really powerful message. Super relevant, I think, for today's world.
Oh.
But before we get too philosophical, I'm dying to hear what you thought about the epilogue.
Oh, yeah.
What did you make of that little peek into the future?
Oh, that epilogue, it was like I don't know, like a warm hug after a wild ride.
I know, right?
No.
Seeing them actually find some happiness and build a life together,
right?
It really showed that love can overcome even the darkest secrets.
It really can. And it's almost like Knockemout itself becomes this safe haven for them.
Yes.
You know, a place where they can just kind of shed all those burdens from the past and embrace the future. You know, Lena, in the beginning, she was so resistant to the whole charm of the town.
She was.
But now it seems like she's found a place where she really belongs.
Totally.
You know?
And that feeling of belonging is even stronger.
Right.
Because the whole community is there for them.
Yeah.
You know, even Sloane and Mrs. Tweedy, who seemed like, I don't know, just these quirky side characters.
Right.
End up being such an important part of their support system.
And I think, you know, what Lucy Score does so well, she uses these kind of secondary characters to highlight this idea of found family.
Right.
You know, both Lena and Nash, they have these pasts.
Yeah.
They're reluctant to let people in.
Yeah.
But then they discover that sometimes the strongest bonds are with the people who choose you.
Yes.
You know? Not the ones you're tied to by blood.
Exactly, yeah.
It's that whole, like, you can't choose your family,
Yeah.
But you can choose your friends.
But in this case,
right.
they get to choose both.
They do. They really do. And there's even some hints in the epilogue of other connections, other resolutions that just add this layer of sweetness to it all.
Right. Exactly.
Like, even after all these challenges, life can still surprise you with joy and second chances.
Yes, totally.
And we get those little hints of, maybe a romance for Sloane.
Oh,
it's like the sense of hope and completion, not just for Lena and Nash, but for everyone. It's that ripple effect, Their journey affects everyone around them.
Totally. Speaking of journeys, what'd you think of the author's note at the end?
Oh, yeah.
I always love those.
I do, too. It's like this little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Get
into the author's head a little bit.
Right. To see what they were thinking, what inspired them.
Yeah.
What stood out to me was what Lucy Score said about the importance of setting in this book.
Okay.
How Knockemout, this town with its southern charm and its secrets, it became like a character.
It did, yeah.
It influenced everything.
Totally, yeah.
The plot, the characters, everything.
And it feels so real.
It does.
You can practically hear the crickets and smell the honeysuckle.
Right. Like it has its own personality, both welcoming and a little dangerous at the same time.
And that really reflects what the story's all about.
Yeah.
Right. You see that trust and betrayal, love and loss, vulnerability, resilience.
All those things, all wrapped up together.
Yeah, it makes you think. It's not a simple story with simple answers.
No, it's not.
It's about the choices we make when things get tough.
Exactly. So I guess for anyone listening, if you're looking for a book that's more than just a thriller, more than just a romance, if you want something that's going to make you feel something and think and believe in second chances, then Things We Hide from the Light might just be the book for you.
It might be.
It's about facing your fears, accepting who you are.
Letting people in.
Letting people in, exactly. And finding the courage to love even when things are dark.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
So are you ready to uncover the secrets of Knockemout?
I think so.
We definitely encourage you to dive into the full story.
Yeah, check it out.
And see what you think.
Happy reading.
Happy read.